There are 4,315,275,402 Alabama football podcasts on the internet. And now you get to ignore every single one. This is the Houndstooth Podcast. Real talk from real fans. We gump to a standard around here. Recapping the Alabama Crimson Tide and college football from around the SEC and across the nation. This is the Houndstooth Podcast. And here are your hosts, Bill Sylvie, Jessica Brand, John Henry, and Bo Gonora.
And good evening to you folks. How are you? It's good to see you. It's good to be seen by you. And what can I say? You know, I think the title of this week's show pretty much sums it up. It was a bad day in Death Valley for Alabama, and essentially the closure of our season as far as a playoff shot is concerned. And we're going to talk about that and scores and more tonight. We are still waiting on a couple of our commentators to dash in, but John Henry is here with us. Big John, how are you?
I am alive. I am well. More than LSU tried to take me down last weekend. I got the flu. So if I start sounding like a dying frog, please bear with me, but I'll do my best.
Well, that's all we can ask from you is your best. Well, so my impressions on last Saturday. First of all, I actually want to address the positive, and yes, there were positive. We went down swinging. This is a team that didn't give up. They didn't lay down and let LSU just kick them around. They didn't go fetal and proceed to get beaten, 54-17 or something like that. They fought for 60 minutes and then some. It's just that all year, this Alabama squad has had some fundamental problems. We saw those start to raise their ugly heads in the Texas Longhorns game, and we've seen them crop up all season. Sometimes they're manifest across the board. It's penalties, it's mental mistakes, it's poor play execution, it's poor play calling. Sometimes it's just one of those or a combination of some of them. This past Saturday, I feel like Alabama was playing their hearts out, but they weren't playing incredibly well. But I also saw some poor coaching decisions. And I hate to say it, and I wouldn't dare say this unless Nick Saban himself had said, look, the blame lies on me. I'm as much as at fault for this as anyone. And as far as the assistant coaches go, I have final say in whether or not certain plays get called or any play gets called. It has to come through me. I can change something on the fly, and I can accept plays. So there we are. I mean, there's really nothing else to say about it but that. So, John, what do you got, man? Uh-oh, did we... Are you muted there, John Henry? Okay, well, we're having a little bit of technical problems with John Henry right now, so I'm going to do the needful thing, and I'm going to pull up, and we're going to look at the stats. We're going to look at the stats breakdown on that game and see just how it looked on paper.
I'm back, by the way.
Oh, you're back. Okay, great. So your opening thoughts. Let's hear them.
So the offense was off, just like it's been most of the season. There have been marginal improvements, but honestly, this offense has barely improved the whole season. The run game is really inconsistent, and the passing game is just off. In my opinion, they're putting too much responsibility on Bryce Young's shoulders to get the team, number one, into the right play call, calling the offensive line adjustments, and then dropping back and then scrambling until somebody finally comes open. And you've heard the announcers talk about this offense this year, about how they don't run a lot of different plays, but especially in the passing game, every play, you could run the same play and it would look different every time because they're running different routes depending on the coverage they're seeing. And in order to do that and have the receiver where the quarterback thinks he's supposed to be, they have to practice together a lot. And as we know, Bryce Young has not been able to practice a whole lot this season because of his shoulder. So I honestly think that most of this is just they can't be crisp because they have not got to practice this very much. And with this kind of complex offense, it can't be sharp. And that's what I think that's the big thing that's been killing us this year. Because we saw they were actually starting to improve in the Arkansas game, and then he got hurt, and then he came back 2 weeks later, and we scored a lot of points against Tennessee, but we're not getting explosive plays. We're seeing a lot of drops. We're seeing incomplete passes either behind a receiver or where he's not, or he breaks one way and the ball goes the other. We're seeing a lot of that kind of stuff, and it's just because they can't practice together, and they need to find a way to fix that. They have to.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the vibe I get from this team, this is very reminiscent for me of I guess technically it would have been the 2011 squad. We ended up going to the Cap One Bowl here in Orlando and beating Michigan so bad that it made Mark D'Antonio's frown even deeper.
Is that the game where the quarterback was caught on camera on the sideline yelling, "They're effing everywhere"? Is that game?
Yes. That
was a great game, by the way.
And Volcano God, he says continuity is king, and you're absolutely right. I have nothing in opposition to say to that. Well, let's take a look at the numbers as we do. So 25 first downs. By the numbers, we did fine. Okay, by the numbers, we did fine. But as we all know, there's only one set of numbers that counts. 6 for 16 on third down efficiency, not great. 2 for 2 on fourth down efficiency, which is kind of nice. 465 total yards, 328 in the air, 25 of 51, averaging 6.4 per pass. One interception thrown, which I don't want to overstate, but I felt like that was a death knell. I know that sounds crazy. Like, Bill, you're talking about 6 minutes into the first quarter. It was very clear. It
felt like it derailed the whole evening, didn't it?
It did derail the whole evening. That was probably the low tide moment in the game for me. So we had 137 on the ground, 30 rushing attempts, average 4.6. Penalties. 9 of 92. You know, I didn't really have an animus, and I have said some cruel and ugly things about referees this season. And they've deserved all of them. But honestly, I didn't see anything Saturday night that was egregious. If you take the penalty calling and the lack thereof of any other marquee game that Alabama's played this season and apply that poor or that narratively crafted degree of refereeing to this game, and we would have had plus 200 yards of penalties. But no, 92 yards of penalties on 9 penalties is us. It's us. All right. This is a team that doesn't have its head where it needs to be. And our total possession time was 28 minutes.
And by the way, did you notice they actually called offensive holding on both teams?
I did catch that.
It was shocking.
It was some of the, as bad as things went for us, I've got to say, it was some of the best officiating I've seen against Alabama all season, barring the Arkansas game, when it was very clear that Nick was not going to put up with the chicanery, with the felonious behavior of the referees in that particular game. You could tell they were playing 5 yards off the ball, if you will, during that game. But I thought the refs did a workmanlike job, and we didn't really, we didn't really suffer too terribly much at the hands of the referees. So now is the time when we talk about our high tides, our low tides, and our elephant stomps. I'll give you a little bit longer to rest your voice, John, and I will say, it's funny. My high tide and my low tide are almost the same thing. Despite all the flaws, the team's determination, they didn't give up. This was very like the Iron Bowl last season. They played. They played to the bitter end, as opposed to the triumphant end of the Iron Bowl. Low tide, that same team. Because my God, if they could have executed, and you know what, I'm including Bryce in that. I hate to say it. I'm including Bryce in that, but I don't think Bryce has a lack of will to win. Don't misunderstand me. I don't think Bryce is making mental errors most of the time. But that pass, that he should have tucked that down. He should have tucked that down and taken a few strides forward, Anyway, thank you, Tunkatada. I appreciate you sticking around. So yeah, high tide and low tide are the same things. Team execution. Elephant stomp moments. Getting that 15 points in the fourth quarter to bring us close. To try and bring us close. I'm gonna tie low tide and say that Bill O'Brien, who needs to no longer be our defense or our offensive coordinator. I want to state that unequivocally. I am saying this may sound crazy, and I'm sure there's probably outside of our little broadcasting team nobody who would give me this title. As a sports commentator, as a sportscaster, if you will, I say this in an official capacity for the Houndstooth podcast. Even if I'm just speaking for myself, it is time to fire Bill O'Brien. It is time for Bill O'Brien to go find a different program to be the offensive coordinator of. He's not effective. Bill O'Brien calls 2 extra points instead of 2 2-point attempts. We win that ball game.
You know, he's not the one making that call, right? That's a head coach's call right there.
Well,
the specific play they run may be on the offensive coordinator, but whether to go for 1 or go for 2, that is all the head coach.
They were bad calls down there, John. They were bad calls. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. After the first one, they shouldn't have even attempted it. I mean, put that on Nick if you want, but the execution of those plays is squarely on O'Brien's shoulders. And I still think he needs to be gone. But anyway, so what do you got?
All right. Well, I'll give you my high tide, low tide, and my elephant stomp. My high tide is that we went into overtime and we scored first. We scored a touchdown in overtime. You usually don't lose when you do that, and you can't blame the offense for that. My low tide. What happened next? Jaden Daniels first and 10 at the 25, 25-yard run in overtime. Just ran right through him. And I guess maybe they were tired, maybe they were just completely caught off guard that he ran. I don't know, but yeah, that completely deflated the team, and that was just bad. And my elephant stomp is Will Richard, 4 for 4 on field goals. I hate that he's having to kick that many, but I'm glad we've got him kicking them.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was watching Richard, I was like, oh, I'm getting shades of 2011 when we beat LSU 21-0. Ha ha ha. Yeah.
We were playing the 2011 game. They weren't. They were scoring.
Yeah, they were playing the 2019 game. That was the problem.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's what I've got. Everybody's been complaining about O'Brien. I've complained about O'Brien a lot lately. And it's his offense and the complexity that is at the root of the issue. Sort of. If we were running a simpler offense that wasn't as it's an NFL offense. And, those guys get lots and lots and lots of practice time every week. We don't have that because our quarterback's hurt and he's on a limited pitch count every day. He's getting maybe a quarter of the reps now that he should be getting as a starting quarterback. Before, he was barely even able to throw during the week. He was just going through the motions. Honestly, that's the biggest reason our offense has not looked crisp. And it's been sluggish. They've got to have more practice time together. Otherwise, this offense is just that's what it's going to look like. Soggy as a bowl of oatmeal, not thick as a bowl of oatmeal.
Yeah. While I'm in a give somebody their walking papers mood. Pete. I'm reminded. This is going to seem like a very strange analogy, but at the end of I believe it's the end of the 1988 or 1989 season of Saturday Night Live, Dana Carvey tells this story. He said, myself and Dennis Miller were called into Lorne Michaels' office, and typically the way, because there are writers and actors that have been on the show that just didn't work out. And if anyone remembers anything about those 2 seasons, or that 1 season rather, it was awful. It was absolutely atrocious. But he said Dennis and I were called into the office, and we saw each other in the waiting room. And we knew that he called individual writers and performers in and terminated them one at a time. He would say, hey, it's not working out. Thank you for your contributions to the show. Best of luck in the future. And they thought, my God, were we that bad? He's going to cut us both right now, because the season had not been good. It had not been well received. And they went in, and they didn't even get set down. Lorne Michaels just looked at them and said, you two I am retaining. I am firing everyone else. You're the only ones who are still going to be on the show. That's how many people got turned over. Do we need to have a Lorne Michaels moment where Nick calls Bryce in and says, you're still on the team, I'm cutting everyone else?
I don't think this is players. I think they're not being developed. We've been talking for the last, 4 seasons or so about how a good offense is just going to tear up a good defense these days. It's the modern game. It's the rules. It's the new schemes. The good defenses just can't stop a good offense anymore. Well, I just watched a good defense destroy a good offense last weekend. It wasn't our defense, and it wasn't LSU's. It was Georgia destroying Tennessee's offense. That defense, our old defensive coordinator running our defense, shut them down. So you know what? I don't believe that anymore. I just believe that we're just not developing talent like we have been. And you know what? I think Golding's got to go before Bill O'Brien's got to go.
You think?
Yeah, his defenses have been underperforming every year, and you know what? I've been willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, but his benefits have run out. So it's time for him to find greener pastures.
No, I agree with you. And like I said, he needs to be one of the people cut. Now I'm going to ask you a bold question. We're kind of all over the road tonight since it's just you and I again. But do you think Nick is slipping?
No, I don't. I think his passion's there. I think he's got coordinator issues. He's been trying to develop this coordinator. But he's not developing. It doesn't seem to me. And Bill O'Brien, if we were on an NFL practice schedule and they had that kind of time, and we had a NFL backup that could go in and execute like an NFL backup, and we had that kind of practice time to get that offense polished, it would look different. But no, we have to go replace people that are leaving every year and bring in freshmen. And there's a lot more turnover on this roster than there is on your usual NFL roster. And you don't have the depth of experience that you have on an NFL roster. You got a lot of green kids that are trying to learn this as they go. We've got to find a way to simplify, and maybe I'm not saying Bill O'Brien's a bad offensive coordinator. I'm just saying maybe that this offense that he's running is a bad fit for a college team, except for maybe in a perfect situation where everything goes right and you've got a whole bunch of seniors on the team.
I mean, I think that's a fair assessment. There's just is it just the do you think that contributes to the overall feeling of something's just been off all season?
It was you know what? The things that were off this season were off last season, except our quarterback got hurt and hasn't been able to practice as much. The defense is actually better than it was last year, marginally, maybe except for one game. The offense has been good in spots. They've just been very inconsistent. The running game's not there like it was. We complained about the running game last year, but same complaints. The offensive line, it seems to have the same issues as last year.
Yeah, I really, really hope Nick is recruiting deep for offensive line. Well,
But you know
I don't.
what?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna go into laid back, introspective, usually sunny John mode. We can't win them all every year. We know that, and it's the most Alabama thing ever for people for a fan base to go into a full collapse because we've lost 2 games. At the end of the game, one on the last play of the game, one in overtime, on the road to top 10 teams. It's other teams would be like, you know what, we're not half bad. I mean, we're this close. We just need to, give it just this little more and get this much better, and we're there. But no, we're everything is lost. It's still we're still in good shape.
Yeah, oh, definitely. There are 118 1A FBS teams that would love to be as bad, quote unquote, as Alabama is right now.
Agreed. And you know what? And I'm, I'll complain about it as much as anybody else, but in the end, you know what? We're still in a place where we are where we want to be. We are there playing for the chance to go to the playoffs every year. And we were there this year. We just missed slightly.
Yeah.
So,
well, and
nobody's slipping. It's just, one of those years, and they're going to happen. We're just not used to them.
I don't want to drink too much of the copium. I don't. I think there's something fundamentally wrong that needs to get fixed between now and September of next year. But I will say this. I will say this. 2007 was Nick Saban's first season. What did we go that year? 7-5?
First with
So it was something like that. We went to the
7-6. We were 6-6 and won the bowl game.
Yeah. We went up to I don't know, I don't even remember the bowl we played in. It felt good. It felt after Shula, Franchione, after our supposed replacement for Franchione literally being humiliated out of his job. Go watch Alabama play in that bowl game that year felt good. I was like, I could live with this team. I could live with a perennial 9-3 or 10-2 Alabama, maybe an 11-1. Maybe they get a shot at the brass ring. I didn't see the playoffs coming. That was always just distant noise, and I didn't pay as much attention to it now. I felt happy. I felt content. Even in 2011, when we came down here to the Citrus Bowl and beat up poor old the poor old Sparties, I had as much fun watching that game, watching the Spartans get disassembled. And I imagine there are probably a lot more people like I am now who are watching that thinking this is terrible. This is awful. Thank you, Ben. Beat Colorado in the Independence Bowl. Thank you so much, Ben. Ben's got some good points out there, and I definitely want to address those. But you're right. I think there is a degree of unclenching that should be done by we Bama fans to a degree. I will say this, and we'll talk about this more at the end. I'm not confident about Saturday against Ole Miss. Sorry, fellow. Bluto, hey. About this upcoming game. Bryce doesn't do so hot on the road, and he's still obviously not physically there all the way. So we'll talk about that when we get there. But yeah, if we come out at the end of the season, what's the shame in having a a down season that is championship material for any other team in 1A college football? So with that, we're going to kind of ease into halftime because it's the bottom of the hour now. Last week we had a trivia question that nobody picked up on, and it was, what were the total rushing yards? What was the smallest amount of total rushing yards that LSU put up against Alabama under Nick Saban? That is Nick Saban, the coach at Alabama. Don't go like, well, when Nick was coach at LSU. What are the smallest number of yards? No one got that. So this is from the 2018 Alabama LSU matchup. 12 was the number of yards.
I do not remember that.
Wow. Let me see here. Well, it led back when I was still regularly using a certain forum that will go unmentioned. I made it part of my posting signature. Someone actually mentioned this. Let me see. Someone in an LSU forum said, would it sound better if we said we got 432 inches total rushing? I made that part of my signature. When I would leave a post, it would get stuck under there. So we're gonna make this simple. We're gonna make this nice and easy. I think everybody should be able to get this one. So this is the trivia. Now you can put this in the comments and get the shout out tonight if you get it right. You can put this in the comments underneath the video if you get this after the video, and you'll get the shout out next week. But this week's trivia is, what is the largest margin of victory against Ole Miss scored by Alabama ever? Any coach. Go, Wallace Wade, Bear Bryant, whoever. Let me know, or let us know. You can put it in the comments. You can stick it in the comments down below, and you'll get the shout out.
Give me that question one more time. I got lost in there somewhere.
No, that's okay. The largest margin of victory in points scored by Alabama over Ole Miss. I almost said LSU. Over Ole Miss, any coach, any era. Ben's got a guess there. We're going to have to double check that. But we'll check on it.
Buddy, that was LSU, not
yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I know. I just glanced over. Yeah. So
I'm talking to Ben.
No, I know. I saw your guess. So yeah, just let us know. And Ben thinks we're going to get boat raced on Saturday. I think there's a high probability of that. But before we discuss that matter, John, have you got some? Have you got some stuff from around the league for us? Let me ask you this.
SEC, and don't worry about my voice. I have got my mug of Earl Grey. It's keeping me going. All right. That was my concern. So let us speak briefly of Georgia, Tennessee, because it is possible to contain this Tennessee offense. Georgia sacked Hendon Hooker 6 times and held him to 22 of 33 passing for 195 yards and a pick.
Ouch.
And held him to 94 yards rushing. Stetson Bennett was 17 of 25 for 257 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Stetson Bennett outplayed Hendon Hooker. And Georgia outgained Tennessee 387 to 289. So we see it is possible to keep 289 yards of total offense for the day.
And it's much easier too when you don't have the refs in against you. Go, please.
It helps when your pass rush can actually make Hendon Hooker uncomfortable and get rid of the ball way before he wants, but also keep him from running straight up the middle down the field for an easy first down every time. And it's also helpful if you can contain the running game, but still keep a couple of safeties back so that you don't get beat deep. That's always really nice. So, and remember, Georgia plays the exact same defense that we play.
Well,
that's better.
I was going to say, I think there's a couple of tweaks that they put in, like doing it effectively.
Yeah, making good tackles. Yes, not committing pass interference on a YOLO ball down the field. Not letting a guy beat you 20 yards, get 20 yards behind you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Those plays. Yeah, I agree. And by the way, Georgia next up is playing Mississippi State and Starkville, while Tennessee has got Missouri at home, which should be good for what ails them.
Excellent.
All right. Now, Kentucky and Missouri. Whew, what a barn burner. Kentucky led Missouri 7-3 at halftime, but they had 2 missed field goals. So it should have been 13-3. The Wildcats took a 14-3 lead into the fourth quarter, but Missouri scored 2 touchdowns with one failed 2-point conversion and then a later successful one. But Will Levis then tossed a 22-yard touchdown to Danke with 5:18 left to take a 21-17 lead, and they were able to hold off the Tigers. And these are the Tigers that lost to Auburn. They lost to the Gamecocks. Didn't look good against Vanderbilt. And Kentucky, struggled to beat them. They beat them 2017. Will Levis was 13 of 19 for 170 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Chris Rodriguez Jr. had 29 carries for 112 yards for Kentucky, while Brady Cook on the Missouri side was 18 of 26 for 143 yards and also had 2 rushing touchdowns. Kentucky's got Vanderbilt at home this week, while Missouri plays Tennessee inside the Pumpkin. That's going to be ugly no matter what happens, just because of the orange. Also, I think Missouri's got the ugliest jerseys in the conference. Just the font they used for the numbers on the jerseys is straight out of the 80s, and they really need to not use that font on those jerseys. It's ugly. They use it on the field too. I think they think it's their brand, but their brand, if their brand is ugly, I agree that's their brand, but
yeah,
I'm just saying.
No, I got your back on that 100%. So
next up, we've got Florida and Texas A&M. This sounds like a match of titans, doesn't it? But so if you watch the game, Florida and Texas A&M, they swapped leads 6 times before the Gators took the lead for good on the 7th swapped lead, 27-24 in the first position of the third quarter. First half, one team. Let's see, was it Texas A&M started off with a field goal, or was it Florida? I can't remember how it started. But one of the teams started off with a field goal, and they just went back and they started scoring touchdowns. And every possession, it was just back and forth.
I know it was
too big of a lead. The biggest lead of the game to that point was 4 points.
It was like watching a Big 12 game.
Little bit, because the defenses were not stopping any offenses in the first half. Florida decided to change that in the second half. And they took the lead on their first possession of the third quarter, 27-24. And the Aggies were shut out in the second half to extend their losing streak to 5, losing 41-24. Anthony Richardson for Florida was 17 to 28 for 201 yards and 2 touchdowns. But Florida had 291 yards and 3 touchdowns rushing, so the running game was on. While Texas A&M, Haynes King was 23 of 45 for 279 yards and a touchdown, and Devon Achane, he should be A-Train, by the way. He should have that nickname. He had 16 carries for 122 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had a good game. He impressed me a little bit last Saturday. And next up for Florida, they have South Kakalaki at home, and Texas A&M has Auburn in Jordan Hare. And you know what? You want to talk about Auburn for a minute?
Sure.
Give me a second to get a sip of Earl Grey, and I'll be right back. So, okay, 2 sips. That hit the spot. So, interim coach Cadillac Williams must have a diesel engine because it took Auburn into the second half to get going. It took them a while. They fell behind Mississippi State 24. They were behind at halftime 24-6. Looked like the game was over. Auburn had 73 yards of offense in the first half. And their first scoring drive was a -2-yard drive. Kicking a field goal after recovering a fumble after a sack of Will Rogers at the Bulldog 8. So they got the ball at the 8 and kicked the field goal at the 10.
I love this stupid sport.
Right? So Auburn did get it going in the second half and actually took a 33-30 lead with a minute, just over a minute left in the game with a Jarquez Hunter TD run. But then Mississippi State came back, kicked a 44-yard field goal with 29 seconds left to send it into the overtime. The Plain men then they missed a field goal to start overtime after a 4-yard drive. And then the Cowbell men won it with a 5-yard touchdown run by Joe Quavius Marks. Rogers was 42 of 59 for 357 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. While for Auburn, Robbie Ashford was 7 of 22 for 75 yards. But he had 18 carries for 108 yards. So he had 22 pass attempts, completing 7, and 18 carries for 108 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. And Tank Bigsby, their running back, had 13 carries for 89 yards and a touchdown. And Auburn ended up with 256 yards on the ground and 4 rushing touchdowns. So their running game is pretty good. It's what has to happen when the big fella back there has to back up and throw it to one of his fellers down the field that they don't do so well.
Mm-hmm.
But, their head coach is a running back. Yeah,
well.
And for Mississippi State, next up, they've got Georgia at home. So maybe they can make them deaf with cowbells and hope something good happens. While Auburn has Texas A&M at home.
Yeah, Auburn, Texas A&M, man, that is... Wait, what am I even thinking of? Of course I want Texas A&M to win that game.
They've lost 5 in a row. What about tradition, continuity?
What about Auburn losing?
Okay. I honestly, I don't care what Auburn does from here on out as long as we just totally wipe them out on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. That's all I care about. They can win. They can lose. I don't care. Let's just wipe them out. I mean, from the minute they step on the field, just get them on the ground and give them atomic elbows and cleats and run up and down on their backs and, then help them up and say, good game. After we've dropped 60 on them. That's what I like. That's my kind of football.
Yes.
Anyway, so let's move on to South Kakalaki Vanderbilt. And by the way, if you've never heard that, that's a common Carolina thing. I
had not. I kind of worked through the etymology of it real quick there. Etymology, excuse me, not entomology. Etymology of it. So please continue.
Okay. So Vandy threw a pick on the first possession of the game, and missed a field goal later in the first quarter, then fumbled in the second quarter to fall behind 31-14 at the half. So Vandy didn't have a real good first half. But they tried to come out in the second half and make a game of it. But they lost another fumble and then threw another pick to keep people from getting too excited. So, they're like, we're going to give it everything we've got. But don't worry, guys, we're not going to give it everything. We're still going to screw up. And you guys can sit back and enjoy your beer. We're going to lose. And the Gamecocks ended up winning 38-27. Spencer Gartersnake was 18 of 26 for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. And by the way, in case you're wondering, I need to see a 300-yard game out of this guy to upgrade him back to Rattler.
All right.
And that hasn't happened.
You are on the bubble, Spencer. You heard it first here on the Houndstooth podcast. Get it together. John is not happy with you. He is herpetologically changing your rating as we speak.
Yeah, you are Gartersnake, and if you drop under 200 yards, you're going to be what are those things?
A gecko, a Florida gecko?
Is a diffused brown snake. They eat worms and they're a foot long. And that's as big as they get. I accidentally killed one with a weed whacker. My 4-month-old puppy last year accidentally killed one because she wanted to play with it.
Oh.
Yes. So anyway, AJ Swan and Mike Wright combined for Vanderbilt for 18 of 33 passing for 3 touchdowns and 2 picks, while Ray Davis had 20 carries for 167 yards for Vandy. And next up, South Carolina is playing in the Swamp, and Vanderbilt is playing Kentucky at the Outdoor Rupp Arena. And I originally had Arkansas Liberty a little higher up, but I decided it was going to be funnier to talk about Auburn first. So now we're going to talk about Arkansas.
All right. Well, Tonka Todd had to dip out of the audience, so you can go ahead and unload on them if you want.
Arkansas kicked a 50-yard field goal in the last play of the first half to take a 21-3 deficit to Liberty. That's last play of the half, 21-3, because they kicked the field goal at the last second. 50-yarder. Now, the Razorback defense managed a safety in the third. The offense finally did get going in the fourth with 2 touchdown passes from KJ Jefferson to Trey Knox. On the first, Raheem Sanders ran for a 2-point conversion, but on the second, Jefferson was stopped just short. And if you watch the replay, boy, was it close. I mean, you know what? I can see that maybe Arkansas might be upset about the replay review on that one because it was close. But Arkansas ended up losing by that 2-point margin, 21-19. Jefferson was 23 of 37 for 284 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks, while Jonathan Bennett was 15 of 25 for 224 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick for the Flames. Yes, the Liberty Flames. Not a bad mascot. I'm just trying to figure out how you anthropomorphize that.
I don't know.
Especially at a Baptist school, you can't, if this were like on the West Coast, maybe you have a flaming guy running around, making all sorts of irreverent jokes like the guy from Airplane, you know what I'm talking about? He would be a perfect Liberty Flames mascot.
Well, I tell you, I don't remember the mascot, but here's a little bit of moderately deep trivia if you are an NHL fan. When I was a kid, I loved all things Atlanta professional sports related. The Falcons, the Braves, the Hawks, and the Atlanta Flames. Exactly. Their logo looked like a stylized indicator you would see on a dashboard that would light up and tell you your car was on fire. It wasn't a logo. It was an ideogram. Google that up, folks. You'll see what I'm talking about. And then of course they went to Calgary, who said, well, let's make it a C, but on fire, So make of that what you will. But it's tough when you're a Baptist college to do anything cool with flames, you know.
Yes, and by the way, I just Googled it. Steven Stucker, the comedian
Steven
from
Stucker.
Airplane.
Yes, a very talented actor, by the way. He was in Trading Places, which, by the way, yes, he plays a he plays a supervisor in an Amtrak station. Al Franken and Tom Davis play two drunk and or stoned baggage handlers.
Yep, I remember that.
Is their supervisor who's reading them the riot act because, say, have you guys been drinking? And Al Franken says, no, sir. There's enough drunks on this train already. But yeah, he briefly tells them to, clean their act up. So that was Steven Stucker.
Okay, but yes,
and he played Johnny.
His character from Airplane would be the perfect Flames mascot.
I
first.
I shall not, and we will remember Steven Stucker well in going forward, because Trading Places is a Thanksgiving movie, folks. It is a holiday film.
and frozen concentrated orange juice to this day.
FCOJ. Every year I ask my father-in-law, who is a financial wizard, to please explain the ending of that damn movie to me. He does. I get it. I have my fourth piece of pie. I take a nap. I wake up and I'm like, oh, damn it, I forgot.
Yeah, I can see that. So Arkansas has LSU at home this weekend. It'd be great if they could do us a solid here and take down LSU, because we could use that. And Liberty, now who cares who they play? Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
they're not SEC. Now, and the only team that did not play this last week was Ole Miss, who were having their seersucker suits dry cleaned for this week, because this week they've got Bama in the Grove.
That they do.
Now that we are completely through the SEC, let's go ahead and round out the top 10. And since they started with the playoff rankings, we're going to use those from last week. So number 1, Tennessee, we already know what happened. So next up is number 2, Ohio State. So the Buckeyes, they defeated Northwestern 21-7 in a Big Ten weather game. And we call it a Big Ten weather game because you never get rain and wind in the other part of the country, except in states where there's a Big Ten school, right?
Right.
Because that's what happened. They got rain and wind. And that's a Big Ten game. And the SEC schools won't play here because of this. And they don't know what to, because, Florida never gets hurricanes or anything. I mean,
no.
Okay.
Yeah,
but I digress.
Yeah, we never saw Alabama play Ole Miss in the outer bands of a tropical depression working its way up between Alabama and Mississippi. No, we've not seen
none of that's ever happened.
That's never happened.
I remember playing in a game in high school where it was raining and it was so foggy you couldn't see the stands. I, standing in the middle of the field, could not see either stand.
Well, hell, what was it last year? The LSU Gators game, or was it the year before? They played in fog so bad they couldn't see the goalposts. It was the shoe throw.
Oh, yeah, I sort of remember that. Is that the shoe game?
That was the shoe game. Yes,
that was the shoe game.
It was so foggy. They were playing in Florida, and it was so humid and foggy that there were times when they could literally not see the goalpost.
Well, you know what? We're by ourselves. We're a little ahead of schedule. Can I tell you a story about that game?
Absolutely. Bring it.
Because it has an Alabama connection.
All right, let's hear it.
I played for this tiny little school, and we're playing another tiny little school, New Hope High School in New Hope, Alabama. But they had a guy that was being scouted by Alabama. They had some athletes. We were these short little white boys. We didn't have anybody. We had one guy that was 6'3". And that we played against this guy. They had a guy that was a wide receiver that went and played guard for Marshall, who could jump out of the gym. And then they had a guy, he was a tight end and defensive end by the name of Howard Cross. You might remember the name.
Sounds kind of familiar, yeah.
Because he played tight end for Alabama for 4 years and then played 12 years with the New York Giants.
That's right.
And we grew up playing all kinds of sports against him, and he was 6'5", and I was 5'11", and he was I did offense. When he was on offense, I just played offense that year. So we had a tight end who played against him. He was playing defensive end, and this guy, Big Richard, he was the one that was 6'3", and he was about 240, 245. And Auburn wanted him to play defensive line, but he construction worker. He didn't consider himself college material. This dude is still big as the side of the house, though, man. He's got arms bigger than my head to this day, and he's in his 50s. Anyway, be that as it may, our scheme for the game was wherever Howard Cross lines up, whichever side of the ball, I don't care what play or what formation you call, Richard, you line up there and you block him, and you knock him in the next week, and you keep blocking him, and you do not let him go. And he blocked that guy, and he didn't make any tackles until right at we were trying to score right at the end of the first half, and he blocked him 20 yards downfield. And I think we scored a touchdown on the play, and literally he pushed him 20 yards downfield across the field, and out came the flag, holding on the tight end, back it up 15 yards.
Oh,
and he got mad. I did not hold him to use it. And I mean, he was mad. And the next play, we ran the same play again, just a little off tackle run because it was rain. Like I said, it was raining, and it'd been raining all week. It was sloppy there, and we would throw 5 passes a game anyway. I think we threw 3 that game, maybe.
right.
But the next play, he blocked him 15 yards downfield, across the field, straight over the top of the referee. They threw the flag on him, knocked them both into the ground, into a big pile. He got tossed from that game right there because they said he blocked this Division I college prospect onto him on purpose. By the way, Alabama scouts were there to watch him that game, and he drove him all over the field until he got tossed. But so we ended up winning that game 10-0, and he still ended up signing at Alabama and playing tight end and getting drafted and making a few $1 million in the NFL. So it all worked out pretty well for him. That's my brush with greatness.
How about yourself?
What about myself?
No, I was just wondering, did you get picked up by the Tide?
No.
No.
My dream was to play fullback for Bear Bryant and the Wishbone. 2 problems with that plan is, number one, he retired my freshman year of high school, and the second part of that is no sane football coach ever let me touch a football. I had some Division II offers, but I knew that I could either be a good football player or a good student, and it turns out I was right. So I didn't play football in college. I just decided to drink a lot of beer and get fat.
Well, there you go. I did much the same with no aspirations for football. I played Pee-wee football in elementary school. We were the Crusaders, the Westminster Crusaders. Our school didn't have enough kids come from it to form a team by themselves, so I was drafted by the Crusaders. And
wait, which Westminster?
Oh, this is in a little town in northeast Alabama called Gadsden.
Oh, Gadsden. Oh, yeah, okay, Gadsden. I know Gadsden.
But no, I played for a couple of seasons, and I played center and right tackle. Those are my positions because I was about 4 inches taller than every other kid on the field. I was a big little poppin' fresh kid back then. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I used to ask the coach every game, "Coach, I want to run the ball." It's like, Bubba, I'm really, you're better at being center. You're better at being center. You know, you got a more important job. And
I was a kickoff man in JV. I could boot it pretty well. Somehow I got out of practice, and I mean, I was getting them high and deep, and then after that, I couldn't get them more than about 20 feet off the ground. I don't know what, something happened with my form. I don't know. Maybe because I never practiced it.
I I tried out for middle school football and got heat stroke and collapsed. I mean, I spent the whole summer doing the fitness and conditioning with the team because I signed up, and then like the first day of PT and tryouts and stuff, I healed over. It was not good.
So drink a little water now and then.
That was the end of my sports aspirations. So I just sit back and watch them and yell things at the young men on the television.
Yeah, I played all the way through. I played through my senior year.
Nice.
And I loved it, but by the time I was by the end of my senior year, I was kind of done with it. It just
I get you. And I was kind of thinking about this, and I mentioned this in the Discord. Consider for a moment, and yes, folks, we're weaving all over the road tonight. Sue us. You think about a kid in, G5 or lesser schools. The NFL is not coming out to look at this guy. And they went to whatever, just name a school, right? They got a full ride scholarship, and they play football from the time they're 18 from when they're 18 to when they're 21 or 22, and then they get the, their degree, and I put that in air quotes. But that's it. There's no, even today, there's no NIL money coming their way. There's never going to get a nod from the NFL. That's it, and I wonder about that, because they still get out there day in and day out, practice their hearts out, play their hearts out. Some of them go on to great careers, for lack of a better term, while they're there, but you never hear about them. You never hear from them. And then they just go on to normal lives. And that always kind of, it gives one pause. It makes one speculate. When you think about the student athlete who's not playing in front of CBS's or ESPN's cameras at least 7 times a season, 3 seasons running, right?
Years ago, when I worked in an actual office, I worked for a company that did interns. I lived in South Carolina, worked in an office in Greenville, South Carolina, and we had college interns. They were professional interns. They were getting ready to graduate, and they were basically getting interns to get some experience, and they were also auditioning for a post-graduation job with us. And we ended up getting a few good ones. We had a product manager come out. She was from one of those little Division II colleges up in North Carolina. North Carolina lacrosse is a big deal. And
I've heard that.
And she played for one of these Division II private school lacrosse, women's lacrosse teams. She had a twin sister, and she came in and she was like 6 months out of college, and I was over talking to her, and she was wearing this short sleeve shirt, and I mean, she was not huge, she was wiry, but man, she had definition, she had muscles. And I started asking her about all this, and they trained like a Division I team. Like, I mean, their training regimen was like a Division I football team. I mean, they worked all the time, year round. They didn't have time off. And you don't really think about, but it does. It's not just Division I, upper division schools that take this stuff seriously. And these kids, they all do this because they love the game and they want to win. And those coaches know that, and they work their tails off. But usually, those people, when they graduate, they do very well because they have a serious work ethic. They'll outwork you every day. And I'm over here in my 40s, and like, okay, it's 5:30. I'm out of here, and they'll go home, take the laptop, and go back and work, and I'll come back in, and they've polished up a presentation that they just started yesterday afternoon. And I'm like, yeah, that's nice. But then there was, you know what? There was another intern. He was a defensive lineman for Clemson, and he was going back for his senior year, but he wasn't sure if he was going to go back and play football or just declare for that supplemental draft. And I could tell just from talking to the kid, he was a big guy. He was an athlete, and his brother was a defensive lineman, and he may have even got drafted. I don't remember, but this kid, he wasn't going anywhere with it. You could just hear it in his attitude. He did not have the work ethic. He was just a big athletic kid who thought he was going places and got to college and realized that, yeah, he didn't. You had to work, and he didn't. He was just he was a little lazy. I went to ask him about something. That summer he had a cubicle around the corner from me, and I went to ask him a question about something he was working on, and he was kicked back with his head back, and he was snoring in his cubicle. So we didn't hire him.
Nah, clearly. All right. So
would you like to actually hear about the top 10?
Let's hear about the top 10.
All right. So Ohio State, 21-7 in that Big Ten weather game. C.J. Stroud was 10 of 26 for 76 yards for Ohio State, and Brendan Sullivan for Northwestern was 10 of 14 for 79 yards, while Ryan Holinsky came in and was 0 for 3. Both teams ran for just over 200 yards, so this is a game they didn't. I watched some footage of them during warm-ups, and one of the field goal kickers tried to kick a practice field goal, and he drove it straight instead of kicking it up, and it still got pushed up, and then it hit somewhere around the goal line, and it just stopped and dropped straight down. So it was kind of windy that day. And let's see, number 3 was Georgia. And by the way, Ohio State has Maryland in College Park this week. Number 4, Clemson. Let's talk about Clemson Notre Dame.
Let's talk about Clemson Notre Dame.
And then we don't have to talk about Clemson again. Well, maybe a little. Notre Dame forced a 3-and-out on Clemson's first offensive series. And then proceeded to block the punt and return it for a touchdown.
You love to see it.
Well, this is this is the team that lost 21-7 to Ohio State first game of the year. And then they lost 2 or 3 games early. I can't remember which, but they did not start well. The Irish have scored another touchdown right before the half to extend their lead to 14-0. Clemson tried to right the ship by pulling out Uiagalelei and putting in Cade Klubnik at quarterback. But Notre Dame's Benjamin Morrison picked him off at the 15, at their own 15, and the Irish scored 3 plays later on the first play of the fourth quarter. Excuse me. Then they put DJ Uiagalelei back in the game, and then Benjamin Morgan picked him off and returned at 96 yards for a touchdown on the next possession to go up 28-0. So Benjamin Morrison, defensive back for the Irish, had himself a pretty good game. Clemson got a couple cosmetic touchdowns in the fourth quarter, but Notre Dame came away with a 35-14 win. Uiagalelei was 27 of 39 for 191 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. While Cade Klubnik was 0 for 1 with a pick. That was Cade Klubnik's only pass of the game. By the way, are you still with me?
I'm still with you.
Okay, I heard a weird noise.
That was I have my mic is on a boom, and I am such a horrible fidgeter. Anyone who watches me on my nerd stream knows that I cannot sit still. So I was moving you heard the ungreased hinges of my mic boom. My apologies to you and the audience.
I'll get you some WD-40. You'll be fine.
Thank you.
All right. So like I said, Cade Klubnik, the hero of their comeback win against, who was it? Wasn't Louisville? Who did they play? They did not. Wasn't Wake? Wasn't NC State? A couple weeks back, Anyway, he came in and handed off his way to victory, but he came in and went 0 for 1 for a pick six. So he was obviously not the answer in this game. For the Irish, Drew Pine, 9 of 17 for 85 yards and a touchdown, plus a rushing touchdown, while Logan Diggs had 17 carries for 114 yards, and Audric Estem had 18 carries for 104 yards and a touchdown. So Notre Dame, not a passing team, not a great offensive team, but whooped up on Clemson pretty well.
Any
And
team puts Clemson to the sword, I'm okay with. Well,
Yeah.
some teams.
I somebody had to beat Clemson. It was Notre Dame. Good job, guys. Next up for Clemson, they have Miami at home. That probably will be good for what ails them. Miami's not that great.
Truth.
Number 5, Michigan. Blake Corum had 20 carries for 109 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Donovan Edwards had 15 carries for 109 yards. Twin 109-yard games from their running backs. While J.J. McCarthy completed 13 of 27 passes for 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the Wolverine defense held Rutgers to 14 yards rushing and picked Gavin Wimsatt 3 times. And Michigan thrashed the Scarlet Knights 52-17. So I've been ranking Michigan fairly high all year, and it's not because they have a flashy offense that throws the ball all over the field. It's because they run the ball down your throat and they play defense.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I cannot tell their coach apart from Dabo Swinney. Put those two next to each other, I can't tell.
They were built out of the same mannequin parts from the abandoned Sears.
Okay, abandoned Sears. I would have gone with J.C. Penney, but you know what? Sears makes a more valid point because more abandoned mannequins probably there.
Fair enough.
So, well done, you. Next up for Michigan, Illinois in Ann Arbor. Number 6 was Alabama, not anymore. Number 7, TCU. TCU forced a 3-and-out on the game's first series, and Darius Davis returned that punt 82 yards for a touchdown. But the Texas Tech Red Raiders kept it close, only down 13-10 at the half. Then pulled ahead on 17-13 on a 33-yard Tyler Shuff pass to J.J. Sparkman. They couldn't hold the lead, however, as the Horny Toads scored 21 unanswered in the fourth quarter and held off Texas Tech 34-24. And by the way, I want you to note those 21 points, those 3 touchdowns were the first 3 offensive touchdowns of the game for TCU. So they didn't score an offensive touchdown until the fourth quarter against 4 and 5 Texas Tech. Just throwing that out there.
Fair enough.
Next up for TCU is Baylor and Waco. That might be a tough game.
We're going to find this out when we go to Stonks, but I don't know. Your opinion real quick. Just, do you think TCU is punching above their weight class a little bit?
Yeah. Honestly,
I feel like TCU is this year's Cincinnati, with all due respect to Volcano God.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. They are ranked where they are because they're winning, not because they're playing especially well, because they keep getting behind and, inferior teams and having come back and win. And everybody talks about, oh, what a great comeback. Yeah, but why were they behind in the first place to that team?
Yeah.
Like Texas Tech. And that's not even the best example. So Baylor at home may have something for them. TCU, they're like Clemson in waiting to me at this point. Knowing the truth.
Fair enough.
Just waiting for him to Clemson. Let us see. I thought they had Texas. Who am I thinking of? I don't know. Number 8, Oregon. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's give Bo the Heisman and put the Ducks in the playoffs because they defeated the mighty, mighty Buffs whose only win is over Cal, 49-10. Bo was 20 of 24 for 274 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then he ran for 16 yards and a couple more touchdowns. Bucky Irving for Oregon also had 11 carries for 120 yards. And on the Colorado side, JT Dwight Schrute was 17 of 34 for 247 yards and a touchdown and 2 picks in his role as assistant to the district manager.
And you've been waiting all night to make that Dwight Schrute joke, haven't you?
You think? If it's there, I'm taking it. I don't care how cheap it is. And next up for Oregon is Utah at home in Eugene. So this actually may be a tough out for them. And everybody's talking up Oregon because, they're winning. But, yeah, they're winning in the Pac-12. And Bo's having a great year. Yeah, because he's not at Auburn playing SEC defenses.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Number 9, USC. Speaking of Cal, who is the Colorado Buffalo's only win, they got behind USC 27-7, and were able to get back to 41-35 with 2.5 minutes left in the game. But the Trojans recovered the onside kick and ran out the clock to barely get the win. For USC, Caleb Williams was 26 of 41 for 360 yards and 4 touchdowns, and then ran for 38 more yards and another score, while Travis Dye had 15 carries for 98 yards and a touchdown. On the Cal Bears side, Jack Plummer was 35 of 49 for 406 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. For TC. Okay, never mind. Wow, I was really messed up when I wasn't even drunk when I wrote these notes. I just found the rest of my Texas Tech notes. Oh my goodness.
I've had a pint tonight. Maybe you're getting a contact buzz over TCP/IP. Who knows?
No, I think I had I was getting a little what's the word? I was hallucinating probably by the time I got to this the other night when I was still had the flu.
I
wrote these notes.
So, I feel I was on storm watch. I am currently on hour 37, almost 38 without sleep. So
storm. Oh, you're on. Okay, so even though it's just going to be heavy rain with some wind, you're still going to stay.
No, it's already gone. It's already gone out of my neck of the woods. But last night I was. So
I see. I get you. All right. Well, next up for number 9 USC is UCLA in Pasadena. So this is a big USC-UCLA game in a Rose Bowl. And then to finish out, LSU was number 10 this last week. And from here, we can now move on to buy or sell.
Okay. Buy or sell. Folks, please invest wisely. Use your best judgment. Don't come to us when your college football wallet is empty. So now we're going to go over to John again, bringing buy and sell where the points are out the window and it's all up in the game. John?
And always remember, past performance is never a guarantee of future results. And I really, at this point, would like to get the sound of a stock ticker in the background.
So I will do what I can. I'll talk to our producer.
All right. So my number one's not going to be a big surprise. My number one is Georgia.
I'm buying. Of course I'm buying. I know you're supposed to buy the dip, but what's not to like?
Yeah, I don't see. I thought Tennessee was going to win that game, but Georgia showed me what they were this last week.
Yeah.
They just dominated them, beat them up front, and that's something that we couldn't do. I'm kind of glad at this point we're not going to play Georgia because I think they would embarrass us.
Well, I just want to get this out of my system now before I forget about it this season. We're having a down year, and Georgia's probably going to win a back-to-back natty. And that's going to bother me because all we're going to hear all summer long is the Saban dynasty is over and the Smart dynasty has begun. You know it. I know it. Every sports beat writer knows it. Bama fans, it's going to happen. Just brace yourselves.
Here's the deal. And I welcome it. I welcome this what's the word, the rat poison for Georgia, and I welcome this goat fuel, as Joy Freshwater calls it. Alabama needs to hear it. Alabama needs to hear that they're over the hill, but their best days are behind them, and they're not as good as they used to be, and they're not as tough as the guys that came before them. They need to know that. They need to hear that every single day. And because it's gonna, if they're the competitive guys that we think they were when we thought they were when we signed them, it's gonna stick in their craw, and they're gonna take it on everybody next fall.
That's the hope. That's the hope.
So I welcome the talk. I don't have to listen to sports talk. Trust me, I have plenty of other stuff to do. Besides, my 5-year-old won't let me watch sports. Sorry. All right. So after Georgia, this is where I go different, and it's because I'm not putting Ohio State at number 2 because I think that my number 2 would line up and whip them right now. And my number 2 is Michigan. They're not flashy. They're just going to line up and kick your butt.
Okay, I am buying Michigan at number 2 strong. I was down on Michigan for a good chunk of the season because, they're mediocre, they're boring. Michigan is getting it done. Okay, Michigan is out there getting the job done, and I know that some people call their coach a genius and whatnot, but I don't. They have all the elements to be just a solid workman-like football team. So yeah, definitely. And Michigan, Ohio State, bye-bye Buckeyes.
Yeah. And I agree. I've been saying this since last year because Michigan, that's what they did to them last year.
Yep.
I have not seen enough change to change my mind about it. My number 3 is Ohio State, but I don't know that they're going to stay there.
No, I'm selling Ohio State. I didn't see, the investment to ROI performance this weekend was terrible. They're a terrible, terrible, terrible purchase right now. This Buckeyes team is sputtering. You ever get to that point where, you start to run out of gas and your car, like you hear that the engine surge just before it stops because you're sucking up vapors and you're putting in a very rich mix into your pistons, richer than what the car's tuned for. That's where Ohio State's at, in my opinion. So I'm selling Ohio State. I don't buy them at number 3. I would put them at after this weekend and Big Ten weather. I would put them. I'd sell them at 3. I might buy them at 5.
Well, so a lot of people brought TCU into 4th because they're undefeated and they're leading their conference. But my number 4 right now is Tennessee because they got whipped up on by Georgia, but Georgia's good and Georgia played probably their best defensive game of the year. But Tennessee's still, in my mind, right now a top 4 team.
That's a solid buy, and I'll tell you something. Tennessee is, and folks, I don't say this out of any love or even admiration. It's just,
oh Lord, no.
we have to be objective about our opinions here, realistic about our opinions. Tennessee is strong. Tennessee is they're swinging for the fences every weekend, and this is not the Tennessee that opened with a loss to Chattanooga back in 2018, 2017, I think. This team is born again hard, and I would swap them with Ohio State. I'm not going to tell you to change your stock ticker, so I will buy them at a 4. I will buy all the Tennessee at a 4 right now.
I think, Michigan Ohio State played last game of the regular season. It'll correct itself. And as of right now, go ahead.
We'll see if there's a market correction. No, I was just saying we'll see if there's a market correction, but please continue.
So as of right now, I've got TCU at number 5. I think that may be a little bit high for them.
Yeah, I'm in a funny place. I don't want to say I'm selling TCU because I made a comparison to Cincy's performance at this time last year. Cincy was punching above their weight and they were doing well and they made it to the big dance, and I can't take that away from them. TCU might do something equally miraculous. It could be a Cinderella season. I think TCU has much higher walls to climb than Cincy did last year. Okay. So I am going to hold. I'm going to stay at 5 for TCU with a lean towards sell, where really the tell is definitely going to come in the next game or two for TCU.
Yeah. What I couldn't do is put a 2-loss LSU or even Oregon above them. Definitely couldn't put Alabama above them right now. Clemson, no. No. So anyway, we'll get to the rest of these. But it's TCU because there's nobody else at the moment. And if something else happens, we'll reevaluate, because that's what we do. My number 6 right now is LSU. You know what? They are not the LSU of Coach Orgeron, where they have a lot of talent and they'll have a great play and then they'll blow something, muff punt, get a field goal block. They are not making mistakes. They're playing mistake-free ball. They are not going to beat themselves. They're playing hard to say for LSU. They are playing fundamentally sound. Good for them. That they're being well coached at the moment. Can you believe that?
Yes, I can, because even though I don't like the man, for reasons that could probably get me in legal trouble for launching into right now, Brian Kelly is a competent coach. We can point and laugh at the beatings that Notre Dame got at Alabama's hands. He coached 2 Notre Dame teams into a BCS and into the playoffs. I mean, that's not a bad coach.
No.
We can.
And now he's in the middle of a very talent-rich state, which kind of concerns me a little bit.
Yeah. Brian, Brian Kelly could be a killer coach. He could really knock down any opposition, and leave some bodies on the field. So I will buy them. I will buy them. Again, hate LSU, but we're being objective here.
Yeah, we are. All right. So, did you say buy or sell in this one? My ears got tired.
On LSU, I do that to people. No, I'm buying LSU.
Okay, at number 6. That means they
have
an
I'm buying LSU.
It's top 4. I guess, you know what? If they went out and make the SEC championship game and then they beat Georgia, what do you do with them? Would they be the
what
first?
What do you do with them?
Would they be the first 2-loss playoff team? Be hard to keep them out at that point.
Yeah.
Now Ohio State was a 2-loss Big Ten champion once and were left out, but that's Big Ten. It's interesting. So anyway, moving on. Number 7, and I really don't like putting them here, but Oregon.
I'm going to hold Oregon at 7. I haven't watched them as closely as I should. I've just been picking up the ticker and so on. But maybe they got it. Maybe they got it. So let's hold here. Thank you, aka Bluto. It's good to have you in the audience.
Yeah, let's see. Okay, now my number 8, and I'm honestly not being a homer at this point, but my number 8 is Alabama because I can't put Clemson or Ole Miss over them at this point. We'll find out more after this weekend, but I can't do it right now.
Hold, leaning towards sell at number 8. I don't know that we get out of Oxford with the W this weekend.
Is everybody remembering the game from 2 years ago where we couldn't stop the run? Is that what it is?
I think that's it.
Yeah, the issues that were plaguing us that game, I think we've got fixed. We have other issues to worry about now, not those. Yeah. So I don't. So Ole Miss is not a good passing team. I think we should be able to stop the run and dare him to beat us with his arm. I'm not sure he could beat his dog with his arm. Just saying. And speaking of that, my number 9 is it can't beat your dog with your arm. My number 9 is Clemson.
I'm comfortable with Clemson being there. I'll buy Clemson at 9.
I'm surprised. I thought you were gonna berate me and excoriate me for even having Clemson in the top 10. So you have to talk about them.
I mean, objectively, John. For all of how we feel about Clemson subjectively, and their crappy strength of schedule, Dabo Swinney's just absolute stubborn lack of adaptation and his nepotism and all of that, they win games. Not all of them. I know it leaves a bad taste in my mouth too, but they win games.
They win, but not last week.
Not last.
And then to close it out, my top, close out the top 10. My number 10 is Ole Miss.
I would almost, I don't know. I mean,
do you want to flip Alabama and Ole Miss, don't you?
No, I want to flip Ole Miss and Clemson.
Oh, I see. Maybe, but
it's a coin toss as to which Lane Kiffin we're going to get week to week. Are we going to get like computer brain Lane Kiffin who can out scheme you before your players wake up in the hotel to come over to the field and get ready for the game? Or are you going to get smart mouth 14-year-old Lane Kiffin who's going to lull epic memes and then proceed to get beaten by 50 points? And until he decides who he wants to be, I don't know what I think about Ole Miss. And I mean, I would flip them with Clemson because I dislike Clemson that much. But objectively speaking, if we played Clemson against Ole Miss I don't know. It would come down to which Lane Kiffin showed up. The Lane Kiffin who's got three-ring binders full of the offensive strategy that he honed to a fine point at Alabama, or again, Lane Kiffin on Twitter. So I'll hold them at 10. If I can't flip them, I won't demand that you flip them. I will hold them at 10, but I would say that they're going to be a solid 9. Even if they lose to Bama and Oxford, which kind of takes us to the next to our last segment of the evening. The game ahead. Look, Alabama is struggling right now. I don't know if they got a dead piston. I don't know if the timing is advanced wrong, but they are stuttering and sputtering. The FBI still has Alabama with a 75% win chance and a 13-point spread. I think that's for the money men in Vegas, because I don't think it reflects reality. I think if we win, it's going to be 24-20 or something like that. In fact, that's what I will say. If Alabama wins, it's 24-20. Realistically, we could go in and lose 21-30. The way this team is just not synchronized. And I don't want to say that. I'm an Alabama fan. I'm a homer. I have to be realistic about this. I am not 6-year-old Bill Sylvie anymore, where Bear Bryant could walk on water and win every football game. And, I'm just looking at what's going on right now. I'm not doubting Nick Saban, but there is something wrong with this team. And I don't know that it's gotten fixed in the last 4 days. So my final prediction, because I am a little bit of a homer, is 24-20 Bama. But I am keeping the other one close to hand because it could very easily be that outcome. How about you?
I don't know what to expect out of this team anymore. I expected the defense to play better, and they play better in spots. They're not playing consistently enough. They got good pressure on the quarterback this last game. And if they can eliminate those stupid pass interference penalties, they keep giving teams chances.
I know.
That got them a first and goal on the 2. They're throwing deep third and long looking for a pass interference penalty, and we're giving it to them.
Yep. And
we've got to do better than that.
Yeah. I understand the chess move of, 15 saves you 7, but come on. I'm sorry.
That's okay. This game, and you didn't interrupt me. You gave me a break to get a little more tea.
Okay.
This is not the same offense. They do not have the passing game. They've got a good running quarterback. I think we now understand how to handle a good running quarterback. And this is not a running quarterback with a great arm. We should be able to handle him. And if he gets in the pocket, we just hold him in the pocket and make him beat us with his arm.
Yeah.
To be honest, we just need to stop the run.
The only thing I'll say in response to we can handle a good running quarterback is LSU.
Yeah, he also had some. He's better at throwing the ball. This guy's not really that great throwing the ball. he's a running quarterback. And the big question is going to be, how is this offense going to fare against the Ole Miss defense? If we can keep the ball away from them and drive and score, and when we get in the red zone, we'll be fine. That's the thing. I think the key to this game is going to be who does better in the red zone. If we can be efficient and score touchdowns in the red zone, I think we'll win. If we can't, we're going to have to depend on this inconsistent defense to keep them out of the end zone. So 31-24 Alabama.
31-24 Alabama. Okay. And you know what? I hope you're right. Anybody that says that, I've given up on this team, that I'm being a doomer and, get the hell out of here. I want you guys to be right. Okay. I sincerely do. I take no joy in what's happened to Alabama twice now this season and what might happen to them in Oxford. So rest assured, I want Alabama to win. I have not, I did not dress up as Joel Klatt for Halloween this year. Okay. So, any other games of note coming up?
And by the way, you want to hear the most worrying thing I heard this week?
Oh, what's that? Let's hear it.
Yeah, the most worrying thing I heard this week is Joel Klatt said Alabama's going to be fine. That scared the bejesus out of me.
Oh no, we are doomed. We are doomed. Anyway, any special games of interest other than Oxford?
TCU plays Texas this week, so actually, I think that's going to be a good game to watch.
How is Texas's quarterback doing? God love him. He got that collarbone injury against Bama.
They got him back about 3 games ago, I think.
Okay, good. Now, folks, look, I don't care if the we're playing the Hell's Satans and their star quarterback is Adolf Hitler Jr. I don't want to see these kids get injured ever. I don't care who you're playing for. When I say, oh, good, he's hurt, he's out of the game, we got a better chance. Get the hell away from my Alabama fandom, please. So I'm glad Texas has got that young man back, and I hope he just balls out and tears up the field for the rest of the season. So that ought to be.
When they do that.
I'm sorry, what?
It helps our strength of schedule when they do that.
It does. We might not have to go to the Aloha Bowl. Anyway, so that's going to do it for this week, I think, for us. Although I do want to give, for the first time in a long time, Ben, aka Bluto, got the trivia right. Back to back, we are tied with ourselves on total points in victory, back to back, 1917 and 1930. I guess that's not back to back, but in 1917, Thomas Kelly's Tide took no prisoners against the Rebels. It was Alabama's 4th straight shutout to begin the season, with the Tide winning those games by a combined 130-0. They were led by Jack Hovatar, a combination halfback, quarterback, tackle from Russellville. They eventually slowed down after beating Ole Miss, going 1-2 and 1 on the rest of the season to finish 5-2-1. The Tide finished 6-3-1-1 in the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Association, while the Rebels went 1-4-1 overall and 1-4-0 in the SIAA. Then in 1930, you might remember this, John. Sorry.
Oh, that hurt.
I've got a half a lap at least on you. Don't worry. In 1930, Alabama did it again, 64-0. The same lopsided score graced this rivalry 13 years later, when the eventual national champion Tide took down the Rebels on the 4th of October at Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa. It was the second of an eye-popping 8 shutouts during that magical season for Bama, which went 10-0 and capped its championship run with a shutout win, what else, over Washington State in the Rose Bowl. And it was the swan song for Wallace Wade, who announced on April 1st, 1930, he would resign at the end of the 1930 season to take a job at Duke. On that day against the Rebels, the Tide opened conference play with a vengeance, taking a 19-0 halftime lead and never looking back. The Tide tacked on 13 points in the third quarter and poured it on in the fourth, scoring 32 points. So there you go. Ben McSwain, Bluto, gets the shout out. He got our trivia question. So next week we'll be back with scores, stonks, rants, all kinds of fun stuff. And yes, more trivia. Everyone have an absolutely wonderful evening. And we'll see you around.